See you over there. And here we are. Hello, party people.
Hey, hello. Welcome to the stream, Rega. It's been a while since we've had you.
Glad to be here. It has been a while since we streamed together, since like season 1, I think.
Yeah. So we do have Kingsley here on the top, playing his traditional Dragon Crab list, I assume. I have not really looked at Mind's Desires list and know the differences, but I imagine it's quite similar. We do see Mia Satoshi, which is a recent include to both decks.
Interesting thing is, last season they had nearly identical decks. There was like 2 differences. This season there are more differences between the 2 of them. Again, Crab. Their splash is exactly the same. They're both running 3 times Pathfinder Blade and 3 times Reprieves. But the differences mainly are the events versus attachments. So one is running Finger of Jade. That's Mind's Desire. Is running 2 times Finger of Jade. Not. Other than that, I believe their attachments are almost exactly the same. Finger of Jade. Kingsley is running Assassination or card of something. 1 assassination and all 3 bonsais.
Yep. And we do see Kingsley here, I believe, snipe the Passing Fate, which is quite good for him. And as for starts, both players have pretty standard starts. Kingsley opted not to play the Doom Shugena and instead to snipe that Fate, giving him a slight Fate advantage going into the conflict phase. But nice ramping starts for both players. No really explosive neat and master openers here. And surprising nobody, we both played 5. Sorry about that, go ahead.
We're in Dragon, 5/5. Neither of these players runs Charge in this iteration of the deck. I believe they both ran it in the last one, although some viewers can check that out for me and tell me that I'm wrong. But I believe they both ran Charge last time, and now neither of them do.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I like Charge quite a bit in the deck because Charge Yakuni and Charge Sumiko are both very high value targets. Even without Yuruma, who I imagine they cut for Satoshi. I'm just gonna grab the deck so I'm not talking out of my butt real quick.
Chat is on my stream. That's where all the people are.
I mean,
Hello,
it's
my
just hosted
stream.
over.
Yeah. All right, so we do see, interestingly, Kingsley does go ahead and make a challenge here. Challenge of the turn.
Yeah,
So they both just pass.
One thing that is worth noting is Kingsley is a little vulnerable to Feast or Famine right now, just because he does have Right Sugu and the Doom Shugenja's on the board to take that fate, and we did not see him pre-play a Pathfinder's Blade. And no, we did. I'm sorry, I completely missed it. We did see him pre-play the Pathfinder's Blade. It does cancel the Restoration of Balance, which is exactly what he wants to do. And he's trying to kick out this palace.
Exactly. Okay, so the favor is off the table. If he gets the palace and Mind's Desire has this commitment, then he will get the favor, which could assume it could to flop next turn.
Yeah, we did see the double defense here from Mind's Desire, and we're seeing a lot of card commitment from both players. We're seeing a Reprieve go down to prevent the assassination, and then a Bonsai. Kingsley lets go of the Cloud the Mind, and then he immediately gets Recloud the Mind. His action's flying back and forth really fast here. So Kingsley is currently not winning. It is 7-8, and Mind's Desire has yet to use his box.
He uses Cloud the Mind. Let go again on Cloud the Mind.
Yeah,
so Right Sugu is back.
I imagine he's going to duel off this Doom Shugenja. 7-3 is no contest for Right Sugu here.
Exactly. And Mind's Desire, like you said, hasn't used box yet, but he's not going to have enough action economy to get anything on that Doom Shugenja before she gets just assassinated by Right Sugu's duel.
Yeah, he chose to put both bonsais on the Agasha Swordsmith, which makes a lot of sense considering it's more vulnerable to the duel. But unfortunately, the duel will go through in that Doom Shugenja, putting Kingsley again winning but not breaking.
Yeah, so interestingly, they both bid one. If Mainz had bid five, there would have been a tie and would have not died. But that's not what happened. And now we see a Fury come out to Baoright Tsugu. So that's a whole lot of resources invested by both players. Restoration of Balance got canceled by Pathfinder's Blade, but you wouldn't know looking at their hand sizes. Fighting Walloon saying his chat on the other channel. No, I'm just hosting Travis's stream. So if you want to chat there, you can, but usually everyone jumps into the main stream. Here, Fighting
It
Walloon.
should make no difference. I believe it does not integrate the chat over.
I don't know. It's a good question.
So
I
that'll
don't
be
think
the
it
end of
does,
the
actually.
turn. Kingsley claims the Void Ring, but that reprieve will keep the Swordsmith round. Or rather, I'm trying to remember exactly what happened here. Oh, we
Kingsley
see a
got
Fury
a
used.
Fury.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
what happened. Alright, so the Void Ring was claimed by Mind's Desire. I had to bounce around trying to get the deck list up. Giving him the favor, but he does not see Sumiko. And he was very likely to get the favor anyway, just because of the Imperial Palace and board. We see Kingsley go a little bit more wide now, picking up that Doom Shugenja from turn 1. We did see Mind's Desire drop Satoshi rather than buy him, deciding he needs a little bit more pressure on board. So now both players have a Neaton Master, one of Dragon's staples for aggression. Simply being able to be in basically every conflict every turn is pretty good, it turns out. And with the Dragon Stronghold and the attachments that you'll be giving it to stand it up, it can become a real terror.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. And I think this is a key turn for Mind's Desire here. He is a little behind on board, and looking at both Sumiko and Kitsuki Investigator on these provinces, if Kingsley wins the favor this turn, the next turn is going to be just a beatdown.
One interesting thing to note here is that My Desire has yet to use Echo, and Kingsley has used two. So the reprieves from Kingsley are very likely to not stick, whereas the reprieves from My Desire very much are at this point. My Desire also has slight card advantage in the terms of the Agasha Swordsmith sticking around, probably another turn. And it will be able to find the weapons for Neaton Master, where Kingsley may not necessarily have the weapons necessary to stand it up as much. We did see him use a fine katana already on Raitsugu.
Yeah, now we see the Agasha Swordsmith does get a fine katana, so Mind's Desire's Niten Master will probably be in every conflict this turn that's of worth.
The issue here with bodies, of course, with Mind Desire, if he defends alone with the Neaton Master in the political conflict here, he does not, which is good. I will say if he did, then he's vulnerable to court games, which could really lower the impact of that Neaton Master. Though whether or not Kingsley would use his own court games to honor his own Neaton Master rather than dishonor Mind's Desires is up for debate. But right now, he almost certainly will do that because there's no point in dishonoring the Sagashi Swordsmith who tagged along.
And of court games, we do see Mind's Desire go ahead and honor his own Niten Master. So, like you said, very unlikely that Kingsley is going to waste his court games now on a dishonor, because of course it would just go that Agasha Swordsmith. Much more impactful to honor his own Niten Master to counter the honor of Mind's Desire.
Yeah, and we see Walloon in chat asking how much does Dragon's Mirror come down to who draws stuff first? A little bit. Obviously, if you don't draw like weapons with your Neaton Master and your opponent does, you're in a lot of trouble. But I imagine both players do have that here. And I'd say it's actually a fairly skill-intensive matchup just because Let Go becomes such a valuable piece of it. And we see Kingsley both Let Go's very early for tempo, just to try and win that early conflict and get blown out by the Fury instead. So I think Kingsley's in a slightly worse position here just because those two key cards are gone.
You see Nix in chat saying, wow, Kingsley is super ahead. Yes, Kingsley has burned two let goes though. So I think, like you said, Travis, those were definitely tempo plays. And that has translated him directly being ahead on board right now as far as board state. But like you said earlier, with that Agasha Swordsmith out, we know he fished for at least one katana. More specifically, we know he has at least one katana in hand because he fished for it this turn. So again, that Niten Master will probably be around every single conflict. And if Kingsley's Niten Master misses even a single conflict, then I think this board state will be deceiving Nyx, where it looks like Kingsley's ahead at first glance, but maybe he can't use his Niten Master 4 times like I suspect Mind's Desire can.
And we do see both players bring out the Jade Masterpieces they have, which is very good in this sort of. It's like one of the new includes in the deck. I believe they dropped the Kitsuki's Method for a Jade Masterpiece, which just gives Dragon a little bit of extra economy, and it's a typeless bonus, so it doesn't take up a restricted slot like Kitsuki's Method does.
Yep,
So
and
that's
they're
just
both
one of the
running
retypes.
a one times. And so the interesting thing is we actually see use a Jade Masterpiece first, but now Kingsley can just use that Jade Masterpiece to scoop all the fate somewhere else. It doesn't matter because mines will just take whatever ring has all the fate on it, but interesting kind of duel of the Jade Masterpieces.
Would be a duel with the fates, as you were. Um,
Exactly.
we see Massive move the fate from the Earth Ring to the Water Ring, and then drop down to Haruma Skirmisher because his Neaten Master did get Cloud the Mind. Clouded of the Mind. Regardless, it appears he does not have the let go necessary that Kingsley had last turn in order to deal with that. So the Skirmisher is going to go in for the water here and stand that Neaten Master up the good old fashioned within the rules way.
Yeah, I find it very interesting that both players decided not to stand their Niten Masters. This could signal that maybe Kingsley doesn't have a weapon, or maybe they just both decided, hey, if you're not going to stand, I'm not going to stand. But it's very interesting here.
Well,
For
this could be
Kingsley,
very good. This will be very weird, actually. My Desire does scout the Feast or Famine, and this Haruma Skirmisher is like one pump away from breaking it, moving that Neaten Master Fate to the Doom Shugenja on Kingsley's side.
exactly. And I think if you're Kingsley and you have any sort of buff at all, you use it here, but he passes.
I think he maybe, if he has a katana, he probably values it more on his own Neaten Master rather than buffing up this Haruma Skirmisher. Which is interesting because
Probably
I think I would have buffed it. So I assume that means that Kingsley has no buff he can attach to the Haruma Skirmisher that's worth using.
my guess as well. Because if I had even a katana, I would have put on the opposing hero skirmisher. Now he might be afraid of a let go coming out, and then you just wasted your katana.
I imagine he doesn't
But
have the
still,
let
I
go
think I
though,
would use it.
because he has a Cloud the Mind on the Neaten Master here, and we know he has at least a katana in hand. I figure it would have been used almost reactively on that Cloud Mind, but maybe Mind's Desire is playing a little deep with those let goes. We do see Kingsley play his own Haruma Skirmisher, but Mind's Desire retorts with a Tattooed Wanderer, which of course gives covert to the attached Neaten Master, so that Skirmisher's covert won't be doing anything here.
Yep.
And I imagine this is going to mean Mind's Desire is going to keep the favor again and not lose any provinces. Kingsley will come away with still a slightly bigger board, but I think Mind's Desire is very much looking good because his Neaten Master is honored and good to go once he draws a let go.
I definitely agree with that. And it's interesting because at the start of this turn, I had said this is going to be a pivotal turn for both players, and it has turned out to be so. And Mind's Desire is coming out ahead here, even though to begin with on board, it definitely looked like he was behind. You see the challenge with one, and it's just a pass.
Yeah, Kingsley just taking the fade off the ring and then letting Mind's Desire just take the favor because he's going to be taking it anyway. At this point, he's just trying to uh, neutral out the turn rather than have Mind's Desire come back in and break.
Kingsley really needs to hope that Sumiko does not show up for mines this next turn. I think if Sumiko shows up here, that could be backbreaking.
I
Depending
do
on what
think
Kingsley.
I do think an edge that Kingsley does have right now is the fact that his provinces are still mostly traps, whereas right now Kingsley's just bouncing off this Restoration of Balance repeatedly, as it's not really doing anything. And until that Imperial Palace goes down, Kingsley's just going to keep doing that.
So we do see another swordsmith, so this will continue to let Mind's Desire dig if he wants, and we see Bro Cooney come out, so he'll just get the best ability of whatever's on the board for the rest of the game, really.
Yeah, probably that Katsuki Investigator or Raisugu, depending on how conflicts play out. Um, and we did see Mind's Desire pass, just deciding to go all in on Yokuni this turn rather than get that extra swordsmith, saving that for later. We see both players bid 5. Once again, we use Miya Satoshi on Kingsley's side to find a storehouse, which will get him an extra card. He is up 2 cards on Mind's Desire right now, but Mind's Desire still has yet to use the Swordsmith this turn, so he'll be up 1 card. I think this is going to be a key turn here. I mean, so far they've been relatively key turns. We've seen both players bashing heads and not really getting anywhere in the board. But I think this will be the turn where the board does shift a bit, as Mind's Desire does have a covert Neaten Master. Simply needs to see a let go, and it can be in multiple conflicts. But even without being in multiple conflicts, it's enough to break uh, provinces on its own right now. With how much
Definitely.
political skill does that have now? Like 8 on its own, and then 10 with the stronghold, 11 with the favor.
It's at 5, base 7, 8. Yeah, 8. And then with the favor, you're at 9 without anything. So 11 with the stronghold, just like you said. And we also saw Kingsley ditch a copy of Yokuni because that's where he put his storehouse. So that kind of sucks for him.
That does kind of suck. Yukuni is very valuable in this matchup, especially when Mind's Desire has blown through 2 of the Cloud Mines. We're going to see Mind's Desire, Jade Masterpiece, and Kingsley probably Jade Masterpiece right back. He moves from the Air Ring to the Void Ring, obviously going for a Void challenge first here.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Kingsley, he actually lost 2 copies of Yokuni off of that Satoshi trigger. 1 copy of Yokuni left in his deck, which is
Yeah, I think what Kingsley is really looking for here is his own palace so that he can steal back the favor.
the Pathfinder's Blade come down the Niten Master as well. So I would suspect that we'll see Mind's Desire scout out some more provinces and ditch that Pathfinder's Blade.
Yep, that's what you want to do. We see the Shameful Display come out here, and we covert the Kitsuki Investigator, so his ability cannot be used first action on defense right now. Kingsley moved the Fate from the Void Ring to the Water Ring, interestingly enough, which is very good going second here. So I think that's really good foresight by Kingsley.
Water Ring going second is just amazing.
I do have to wonder if Kingsley does defend here. He does. The Shameful Blade will be countered by this Pathfinder's Blade, but that is one less weapon for that. Oh, he defends with Satoshi. Interesting. I assume that means that Kingsley does not have a weapon to stand that Neaten Master still, which is very unfortunate for him. Or he wants to use it twice on offense, which is always possible.
Clearly, he has no weapons at all. I mean, in his deck, he's got 2 Daishos, 3 Katanas, Finder's Blades.
Yeah, he's got the
We've seen him
standard
use
affair.
Pathfinder's Blade, right? I think. Oh, and 1 Katana.
Yep. So he should have
Expect he'd
7
have
more
some.
weapons in his deck. I have to imagine he has 1, maybe just 1 though. Wanting to save that for attacking twice rather than defending and then attacking. We see 208 fans come down on the Satoshi. The Stronghold's used on Mind's Desire side, and it's going to be used on Kingsley's side as well, probably to prevent the break. I think the Shameful Display will be very worth protecting because it's already gone through a Pathfinder's Blade. And there it is.
We see the fan battles coming out. I always like to visualize these battles in my head, like, hey, I'm coming for your Shameful Display. Like, no, I've got 2 fans.
We see a court games come out from Mind's Desire. That's number 2. Kingsley has yet to see 1. If Kingsley has nothing else here, I imagine that's going to be the Shameful Display breaking, which is a bit rough for Kingsley.
Yeah, because he did. Oh, and he passes. That is rough because he's committed resources to this defense, and then it gets broken anyways, which is just tragic.
Yeah, by no means the end of the game. Just a little rough to have committed 2 fans to that, but at least in terms of card trade, he's not terribly badly off right now, still having a bigger hand size than Mind's Desire. We just see the Let Go drop that Cloud the Mind and then ready the Neaten Master as predicted.
Yeah, and this Niten Master for Mind's Desire is just running away with the game. Just got let go, but it was in a couple conflicts last turn. It'll be in a couple conflicts this turn, and it's just a beast here for Mind's Desire.
Next, the Investigator was coverted by the Neaten Master's Tattooed Wanderer, so he couldn't defend and immediately investigate, which was a smart move by Mind's Desire, because that's like the one way Kingsley will be able to solve this turn.
Yep, exactly.
And rough thing right now, has Yokuni been used? Did I miss it? I don't think Yokuni has been used yet. So what Mind's Desire could do right now is he could actually copy the Katsuki Investigator's ability and then pull that same trick on Kingsley.
Yeah, and I anticipate that that may come down. We have seen two court games come out from Mind's Desire, and that one was used to break that shameful display. So, in the short term, definitely a good move. But I have to wonder, maybe he wanted that for Yokuni. I suspect at least that there will be a political challenge with the Kitsuki Investigator out. So it'd be nice to have Yokuni first turn honor. Now he's up to 8.
And as expected from a dragon matchup, there's very little honor pressure going on this game. So this game is strictly going to be about breaking provinces, at least for the moment. We see Raitsugu come in for a military water conflict as predicted by the movement into the water ring. And Neaton Master here is going to defend. I only imagine that Mind's Desire has yet more weapons to drop down onto him.
And Raitsuga's at what, 5 right now? And that Need Him Master is at 7, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
worse yet, that
7
Neaton Master
military.
can actually do a really nasty political debate here as the first action, which could be quite bad.
Pretty rough. And they're both running 2 policy debates, so it's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, policy debate here could be quite huge.
Yeah, and there's literally nothing that Kingsley could do about it. Policy debate, the most fair and balanced card, just like Fox News. But yeah, if he throws it down right now, there's literally nothing that Kingsley can do.
Kingsley also hasn't seen a Fury yet this game, so a lot of these really impactful cards, Kingsley's just missing out. He didn't have a weapon last turn, it seems, and now he hasn't played a Fury yet by turn 3, which is not what you want. Within a couple more attacks, his Furies won't be doing anything against most of the Dragon lineup.
Especially on this board. I mean, with one more attack, you can't Fury Yokuni, and that's pretty much guaranteed this turn. With 2 more attacks, you can't Fury the Niten Master, or really anything that impactful. Yeah, saying one of these guys needs a copy of A Fate Worse Than Death.
Everyone should just
Yeah,
run Scorpion
yeah,
Splash. That's the meta now, right?
everyone's Scorpion. Scorpion meta.
Yeah, 100%. I do believe Mind's Desire is running Finger of Jade, is he not? He is. He's running 2, where
Yeah.
Kingsley is not. That is a key difference between their decks. So even if Kingsley did have a Fury, a timely Finger of Jade from Mind's Desire would basically negate that. Could also act as a negation for Feast or Famine as well.
See the Ancestral Dice Show come down, and so now it's tied 7-7. I suspect that Dice Show is going to be used to unbow Satoshi. Excuse me, the ring, the water ring, if it won.
Yeah. We did see it come down on Raitsugu and not the Neaton Master. So I wonder if Kingsley is either holding more weapons, which is still likely, having drawn half his deck and only seen 3 now, or if he is making a commitment here to this attack in particular, to this water ring, in order to actually get ahead in the turn, rather than stay in the Neaton Master later. We'll have to see.
And we do see that it resolves, so he gets the water ring, and he does unbow Miya Satoshi, just as we suspected. So we will most likely see an attack with the Investigator and Satoshi. But Mind's Desire is going to be making a pretty fierce military challenge of his own right here.
Yeah. Neither deck plays For Shame, which is pretty typical for Dragon, having very little courtiers. So, not lots in the ways that the Satoshi is going to be able to defend this military attack. And this covert Neaton Master is probably just going to remove Kingsley's Neaton Master from the conflict entirely, forcing Kingsley to awkwardly defend either with a massively political Satoshi or a Kitsuki Investigator who wants desperately to be on a political conflict. And he's going right in at Feast or Famine. That tells me absolutely that Mind's Desire either has another Pathfinder's Blade or the Finger of Jade to prevent that from really stealing a fate off anyone important.
Yeah, my assumption is he's going to drop Finger of Jade on Yokuni, and that's exactly what we see.
Yep, and we're probably going to drop another Finger of Jade onto this Neaton Master as well. Otherwise, Kingsley will just steal the fate off it.
I think, excuse me, I think that's probably a strong line of play, and there it is. Boom. Second Finger of Jade. That's just brutal for Kingsley, so Feast or Famine's going to go with nothing. Uh, Nothing gained from it, that is, unless Kingsley has some effect that he can use to get rid of one of these Fingers of Jade. He does have his third Let Go in his deck somewhere, but it's unlikely that he's drawn it with 19 cards left.
It's somewhat likely, but not huge. Let's put it that way. I would imagine he doesn't have it yet. Otherwise, he would have probably just used it by now. Seems like a pretty straightforward let go here, because we know that Mind's Desire only has two Fingers of Jade, and that's both of them. We see a Fury used, canceled by Censure, because Mind's Desire still has the favor. And I think this game's kind of going Mind's Desire's way just off of that turn one. Imperial Palace is kind of sticking around, and excellent defense by him, just waiting out until he gets to a bigger board state.
Imperial Palace has been pretty huge for him because it enabled that Sentry right there. He's had the favor the whole game. Now we see 9-0 win, and Kingsley says, "Ouch." Yeah, that's not the way that Kingsley wants this game to go. Obviously, um, just
Yep.
snowballed. From that first turn, I do believe that Kingsley. I do tend to agree with Nick's statement that Kingsley was slightly ahead on board going into turn two, but coming out of turn two, the tempo had swung at that point to Mind's Desire. And to your point, he had already spent two let goes and apparently drawn no gas. So even though on the board it looked like he was ahead, really he probably was behind from the start of turn two, from what we saw.
Yeah, we do see Kingsley still have 8 cards in hand, but no Fate right now, so not many expensive tricks are possible here. He might be able to break this now, going in on a political attack. That is quite a bit of skill, and finally remove this palace. But I think at this point he's really playing on the back foot. This Neaton Master just being able to go off has been enough to put Mind's Desire in the driver's seat of this game.
We will see a pretty fierce challenge is the plus side for Kingsley. Does he commit his Nite Master, or does he keep it standing in an effort to combat the favor?
It will be an interesting choice here. I think, well, you're going in with the investigator, obviously, and he decides to commit all three anyway, but I think it's the right move to do so. You really need to break this palace out. And
Yep, I agree.
this being an Earth conflict as well, this will absolutely destroy Mind's Desire's hand. He's played out most of his gas, so Kingsley might be able to choke out the rest of Mind's Desire's hand and maybe just win off card advantage from now on. But the board will be very much favoring
Yeah,
Mind's Desire going into next turn.
we'll see Yokuni copy the investigator and then use that pretty quickly. Kingsley, unfortunately, can't even use the investigator because, like you said earlier, he has no fate. So that's quite unfortunate for Kingsley.
Oh, you're right. That's a very true thing. Fortunately, that card does have balanced text and requires a fate to activate.
The Earth Ring, like you said, though, will still help him. He'll still be able to wreck Mind's Desire's hand a little bit. But if Mind's Desire does go ahead and copy the investigator, he'll have perfect knowledge of Kingsley's hand, going into a very pivotal turn 4. Saying that he's down 2 bricks to 0 and a realistic dishonor possibility. I don't actually think the dishonor possibility is on the table at this point. It would have to go at least a turn 5 before he's going to get dishonored out, unless he just plays massively wrong incorrectly. And I don't think Kingsley's going to make massive errors like that to expose him to a dishonor victory turn 4.
There's next to no chance I think Kingsley's going to go for a dishonor victory. What this nets Kingsley is hand advantage, if nothing else.
I think Nick is saying that Kingsley is at danger of being dishonored out, but he's at 8
Yes.
honor. Even if Desire slams 1, he'll go down to 4 pretty carelessly to actually lose to dishonor that next turn.
Yeah, I don't think there's much, especially for Mind's Desire. I feel like bidding 1 next turn will absolutely throw your advantage away. Put on needless dishonor pressure when you're already winning the province game.
Go ahead and copy the Togashi Initiate, and it's Kingsley's hand. That looks pretty nice.
Kingsley's hand is an Assassination Censure, a Katana, a Skirmisher, a Method, Pathfinder's Blade, Reprieve, and Reprieve. Those Reprieves are going to be very huge here. We see him drop the Assassination from that investigating Yokuni. and I wonder if, as Kingsley, it's worth reprieving both your characters, or you try to keep that Neaton Master around for 2 turns, as you do have another Pathfinder's Blade to stand it back up. Another
I
interesting
think,
thing here is if Kingsley manages to break this, he'll be able to use that Pathfinder's Blade to grab the favor.
yeah, I think the problem for Kingsley is he doesn't have any fate, so he can't retrieve either of his characters. There's no Daimyo's favor out for him either.
Oh, this was a fire conflict. I thought he was. He had switched the Earth Ring earlier, so I assumed it was Earth, especially because Mind's Desire is so low on cards. But I suppose he decided to go to fire just to try and dishonor Yokuni and remove and equalize the board a bit here. We see a Fine Katana stand the Neaton Master used to grab the favor. That's what Kingsley needs at this point.
Yeah, that's an interesting play. Assuming he had the Fine Katana already when he played the Daisho on Raitsugu this turn, I would have played it opposite, put the Katana on Raitsugu and put the Daisho on the Master. I guess it doesn't matter in the end, but
I
then he would have
actually.
had one fate left, maybe.
Oh yeah, Kingsley does not have the fate for reprieve, so never mind. We will not be seeing the reprieves come in for Kingsley here. And I feel like at the time when he played the Daisho, he wasn't sure if he was going to play the Fury. So I think he was planning on reprieving the Neaton Master and letting Raitsugu die off so that that Daisho would return to hand, but later shifted to play the Fury, which eventually got censured. We see a terrible flop for Kingsley here. That's not at all what you want to see. Whereas Mind's Desire sees another Neaton Master and a Swordsmith to come out and find more weapons.
Fortunate flop for Kingsley, he's gonna have to pretty much buy out all of those 1-drops, I think, unless
He
he
can only buy
has.
out 2 of them.
Oh, you're right, because Shugenja is restricted.
Yeah, but like one time, the limited text on Doom Shugenja mattered. Uh,
Everyone's like, limited, what does that matter? Now it does. The one game out of hundreds.
yeah, this is not good for Kingsley. We just see him Satoshi dig and find another Satoshi to put a fate on him. Uh, Interestingly enough, Satoshi was the very next card, so he didn't really lose much for that, but he did discard another Neaton Master for it, putting Kingsley down 2 Neaton Masters and 2 Yokunis. No, I'm sorry, all 3 Neaton Masters are now gone for Kingsley.
His hits with this Satoshi have just been brutal. I actually like Satoshi. I like the inclusion of Satoshi in these decks. I think it's an interesting dynamic, but it just has not worked for Kingsley this game. Dropping both Yokunis, and one of the Yokunis was actually on province, the province that he selected to place the Imperial card. So that Yokuni would have been coming, I believe this turn is when it would have happened, or maybe it was last turn. And that could have been a huge game changer.
Perhaps, but I mean, at this point, the way you got to think about Satoshi is just those cards basically being on the bottom of your deck and not really mattering. One thing to note as well is Kingsley could. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was say one thing to note is Kingsley is getting low on Dynasty cards, so it'll be interesting to see if he actually uses Satoshi again.
Yeah, and that's to Nix's point from last turn where he said dishonor's on the board, and I was kind of like, no, it's not. I still don't think it is right now with him having 8 honor, but with him having only 10 dynasty cards, that is a real possibility. However, I still think that the loss, if it's to come, is much more likely to be via stronghold break than dishonor.
One other thing of note is that the Jade Masterpiece on Mind's Desire side is still intact, so he'll be able to deny fate from Kingsley and grab it up for himself if he so desires.
And we do see he's moving a fate from the earth ring to the water ring.
Very interesting, actually. I imagine it's just because he's going second this turn, and Kingsley will very quickly go for an Earth conflict here. To which he'll defend him and water ring to stand Yokuni back up. It'll be interesting to see if Yokuni copies this Katsuki Investigator again.
I think it'd be prudent for Mind's Desire to do so.
Yeah, I think
he's
so
down
too.
on, yeah, he's down on hand size, especially if this first attack is political. I don't think that's what Kingsley will do. I think he'll come in military first. But if it is political, then yeah, I think you just defend with Yokuni, copy Investigator, use Investigator, drop whatever the next best card is, and then stand Yokuni with Watering, like you were saying.
Yep. So I have to imagine Kingsley needs to attack military first here. Or could
Nick
go for
said
the
no
trade.
realistic DH possibility. Thanks, Fighting Walloon, for correcting my incorrect reading of Nix's comment. So we're in violent agreement. There's no dishonor on the table right now.
Wolfsark asks, is Mia Satoshi better than Yaruma? Yes and no is the typical answer. I can give you some logic as to why Satoshi is run. For example, the deck does run 3 Imperial Storehouse, so his action could very well be draw a card. And one thing that does make him nice versus Yaruma is the ability to fetch duplicates of himself so he can stay around, making him an excellent Voltron target, who basically can self-reprieve. So in a lot of ways, yes, but not strictly so. Yaruma still has his own benefits, but most Dragon are leaning towards Satoshi for those 2 benefits I've just described. As well as the Imperial favor being very important, he could also find the Imperial Palace for you and get that out onto a province.
So the other thing we could see here is we could see Yokuni copy the Togashi Initiate to honor himself, which is generally a pretty strong play as well. I think the Kitsugi Investigator play is probably stronger. Would not blame Mind's Desire if he copies this Togashi Initiate to get Yokuni honored.
I actually do think maybe the copying the Togashi Initiate is stronger here, because at this point, as Mind's Desire, discarding 1 card from Kingsley's hand will not do much. We do see a policy that gets censored there. But having the Honored Yokuni with 2 Fates stick around, that'll give you a lot of gains in the long run. And Mind's Desire is technically running out of gas, being much lower on cards than Kingsley.
Yeah.
We see another policy debate come out here. This time Kingsley lets it through, implying he does not have his 2nd censure. So I have to imagine both players bid 1. We see Mind's Desire go up to 3 just to give himself a bit more of a parity here. And we see Kingsley's hand again. Mostly good stuff. He's finally drawn some court games. He still has that Kitsugi's Method and that Skirmisher. He has another weapon, which he probably isn't saving, seeing as he's out of Neaton Masters. We see him draw 2 Fury. No, 1 Fury. No, 2 Fury. I can't count. He still has that Pathfinder's Blade and that 2 Reprieve. So Kingsley saved up a bunch of Fate from last turn, so maybe he can create a lasting board state this turn.
What do you take if your Mind's Desire here as a Dragon player?
Fury is still relevant, at least for the Neaton Master. So because your Censure's offline and you're out of Finger of Jade, that Fury could be a bit of an issue. You have spent a lot of weapons so far. We see him go strictly for discarding the 1 Bonsai in there to prevent a break here. Probably just doing some quick math and counting to see whether or not Kingsley could even win this conflict.
Mm-hmm. So my prediction internally was it was either going to be the Bonsai or perhaps the Hiruma Skirmisher. But I was leaning more towards the Bonsai myself.
I feel like it's really interesting that this is a water conflict, but Mind's Desire decides not to defend with the Neaton Master, feeling very confident he's going to win.
Or at the very least, force Kingsley to expend enough resources to be at parity.
Right.
You see Yokuni go ahead and copy the Neaton Master instead, so it looks like Mind's Desire might be
how interesting here. Yeah, so he's going to be spending weapons on Yokuni instead of the Neaton Master, who's getting bowed currently. He needs to still win this conflict for this to be really good, I think. Otherwise, this Neaton Master is going to do more than Yokuni will. Unless you just have literally that many weapons, which is always a possibility with Dragon decks these days.
It could also just be a stall. Maybe he already knew that he wants to, but no, we see Kingsley win, and that means that Neaton Master is going to become bound.
That's super interesting. I feel like if you have a weapon now, maybe he just doesn't want to discard the Fine Katana on the Neaton Master, or maybe he just has that many weapons. We've seen 1 Pathfinder's Blade from him, right?
Yeah, he's running 8 weapons, so 2 Daisho, 3 Katana, 3 Pathfinder's Blade. I believe we've only seen the Pathfinder's Blade and then the Katanas that are out on the Neaton Master already. So 1 Katana, 1 Pathfinder's Blade. Of his Daishos.
Yeah. And to echo a bit of what's going on in chat, Fighting Walloon says that the Mind's Desire's early court games have been giving him excellent momentum in this game, and it really has. Mind's Desire's Neat Master being honored versus Kingsley's just kind of sitting there in a non-honored state for so long really has sort of given Mind's Desire the edge to win these conflicts and break these provinces rather than Kingsley. So we do see a Pathfinder's Blade drop down onto Neat Master. I have to wonder if we're going to see another one onto Yokuni.
Given
This
the
Neat Master's
copy,
just
I
huge.
imagine you will. And he's only that's his third weapon, and he's only got 12 conflict cards left. So you have to assume he's got at least one, and most likely two more weapons in hand. Him take this line here, which is don't unbow Yokuni yet, just go to the Uniten Master, and then unbow Yokuni next.
Yeah, and I don't remember what he grabbed with the Swordsmith, but did he use the Swordsmith already this turn?
At the very start of the turn.
Yeah, he grabbed a
And he probably
reprieve.
grabbed the reprieve because it was the only left. Like, sometimes you just hit with the swordsmith and it's like, do you want this card or nothing? So I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case.
I do feel like he just took the reprieve because his Neat Master is going away this turn, and Kingsley's used two Let Goes.
So
Again, a
possible.
very important card in this matchup for dealing with reprieve. Using it on Cloud the Mind on Right Sugu to win that early conflict may not have been worthwhile in the long term.
I gotta say, this Nate Master is one of the biggest Voltrons I've ever seen in my life. He's got the Jade Masterpiece, the Tattooed Wanderer, a sword, two swords really, right?
Yeah, he's got the two swords, so it's two restricted. He's got a Wanderer, a Finger of Jade still,
And
a Reprieve,
reprieve.
a Pathfinder's Blade, and a Jade Masterpiece. All these non-unique attachments, or non-restricted attachments, rather, coming in.
He is super protected. It's like anything that you do to this Nate Master, Mind's Desire can choose to cancel with the Finger of Jade. Although importantly, that is the last Finger of Jade. And then he's got his swords, his reprieve. That guy is just he's having a good old day.
Yeah. One thing here, Kingsley does have two Fury open to him, and there's nothing Mind's Desire can do about it other than expend another weapon on this Neaton Master. So I'm
The
very
Nate
curious.
Master. He's just poking with the swordsmith. His attack
Oh
from
yeah,
Nate
you're
Master
right.
over to swordsmith. So he probably just wanted to poke that ring off the board. And now we see Okuni stand up.
This will be very good for Kingsley
Kingsley,
in terms of favor, though.
yes, it will be. I'm not sure what I do actually. I guess you probably send Investigator on an attack. The problem is Yokuni and Niten Master both just have such high political stats right now that both of them Kitsuki Investigator by themselves.
Yeah, you'd have to commit both the Katsuki Investigator and Satoshi just to get Kingsley to commit one of these characters to defense, or to get Mind's Desire to commit one of these characters to defense. And if it's a Neaton Master, Mind's Desire still wins. We do see Kingsley commit both. We find the Manicured Garden. We will be able to see Kingsley discard one of the three best cards in Mind Desire's hand, but not before he gets a chance to play one here.
I think you nailed it in your line evaluation. If your Mind's Desire, you just defend with that Niten Master, especially if you have another weapon left. It's probably not as likely. He's only got 3 cards in hand, but
Yeah, right?
brainer. Just
Yokuni's currently immune to Fury, and so, like, Kingsley has two of those. You defend with the Neaton Master here, you attack with Yokuni onto the Manicured Garden. There's nothing Kingsley can do, and he loses his third province.
and we see the Tattooed Wanderer coming down on Yokuni. I don't really think that's strictly necessary right now.
I think he's doing it for next turn. He'll have two
Yep.
coverts going into Kingsley's Stronghold next turn. Very strong.
Yeah, it's ridiculously strong.
Yeah, I think this is Mind Desire's game right now. I think the game is effectively over at this point.
And Mind's Desire has been making a good use of kind of what I call idle actions, right? Like that Tattooed Wanderer was an idle action where he says, hey, I know I want to do this anyway, so why not do it now and show me what you got.
You've seen Kingsley not use the Investigator at all. Just letting Mind Desire keep his last card. Curiously enough.
That's interesting. Maybe he just figures it's a Fury or doesn't want to expend the resources. He is down so much, and he knows that he's going to have to defend his stronghold next turn, that maybe he just values that fate far more than one card from his hand.
Yeah, and it's also giving a fate to Mind's Desire here. Not super ideal. And he does see the double covert on board next turn. It's very bad. This Void Ring is mostly preventing Mind's Desire from taking it against him. And this Province Break will not matter right now. Kingsley's going to
Here,
need a miracle to play out of this.
here, you know that last province is Restoration of Balance. So you just go hit it because you have one card in your hand, and you don't even mind.
Yeah. Kingsley may be 9 cards ahead, but he really needs what he really needs right now is just bodies. He needs characters on the board that he can match this Neaton Master and Yokuni with, which that's a tall order. We do see the Restoration Balance come out here. We're gonna see Mind's Desire not discard anything because he's got one card in hand. So it's a bit rough.
I think it's funny that Mind's Desire decided to go ahead and covert two characters anyways, you know, everyone's bowed. But yeah, I agree with you. If really Kingsley needs some sort of miracle going into this next turn, have any chance, because that double cover is going to be a huge liability. Kingsley needs like two
You see the
tattooed
reprieve
monitors
come
of
down just to give him another body next turn. That's what he needs. He does have the favor as well. But this is still going to be rough. I'm still not sure if he has just the raw numbers required to defend his stronghold, but we'll see. Someone
Yeah,
asked
and it really
earlier.
depends on what he's put there, which is probably rally.
Yeah, someone asked earlier whether or not the dragon matchup comes down to draws, and I said yes to an extent, but skill is still very important in this matchup. We see both players playing pretty perfectly. I see very few mistakes, but I think Mind's Desire just drew better. And we see Mind's Desire again. Like I think these early let goes from Kingsley might be the only long term mistake he might have made. It was a very short term play to commit 2 let goes for that conflict win, I think, and they're so pivotal in this matchup.
Yeah, I think it was pretty aggressive. The first one I could definitely see. The second one I probably would have said, all right, you just spent 2 fate and 2 cards. I spent 1 card and no fate, and taking that trade.
Yeah, hard to say at the moment though. There could have been a lot of different information in Kingsley's mind at the time.
Saying a mirror is by definition based on luck. I mean, if you're both playing optimally, I would tend to agree. It's what did I draw that you didn't, and I do believe, like Travis said, that both these players have been playing at a very high level. There are a couple plays that I think maybe Kingsley will look at the end of this game, and you know, slight optimizations, but nothing egregious by any means. One of them being that Katana and Daisho 2 turns ago, where then he had no fate to reprieve. I would have played the Katana first pretty much every single time there, just because of fate economy and the tempo was already swinging. Then, like Travis just said, both those let goes, turn one was very aggressive, especially when Cloud the Mind, yeah, it sucks, but there's so many other impactful attachments that are going to come your way.
Just not to pile on more bad news for Kingsley here. He is going second, and the only fate is on this air ring right now. So he's in a bit of a fate hole right now because he wants to buy lots of these characters, but can't necessarily afford to do so without leaving himself on no fate, and he'll be gaining no fate during the conflict phase. We see Satoshi come out, grabbing the palace, sticking it on the manicured garden, so I guess Kingsley will be keeping the favor for the rest of the game. Raisugu will be an interesting buy here. I'm curious if he decides to go for it.
Yeah, my guess is that he buys Red Suga with one.
I
I
think you
think he
need the
just
bodies.
needs passes. He passes, chooses to bid. You know, he still has a Hero Skirmisher in hand, right? So
It's true.
that's in their body, but
I have to imagine what's going to end up happening here is Mind Society is going to go for air, all in military. He's going to covert the Togashi Initiate and the Doom Shugenja, forcing Kingsley to defend awkwardly. But if Kingsley manages to pull off the defense, he can covert water with the Skirmisher and ready Sumiko and maybe get a semblance of a comeback in this game.
well, and you've also got Rally under Kingsley's box, which we know for sure now that the resto flipped, which I mean we
Right.
pretty much knew for sure last time, anyways. So sucks. I mean, either way, you're gonna have a huge hole here, and Rally doesn't give you a massive strength bonus like any of the Earth provinces do. But like you said, if he can manage some miracle to stay at his stronghold, then he can make a crack back, get that Sumiko up and running, and then she can make another attack as she won't bow. He plays a Tattooed Wanderer on Sumiko.
That's the third Wanderer, and then Kingsley plays his own on his Sumiko. It gets let go again. Not having those let goes available to you at this point in the game is crucial. It can decide the
Mine's
game.
our second let go, I believe, so he's still
Yeah,
got one left.
Kingsley still has one as well, but I have to imagine he doesn't have it. And there we go. That's very bad. I think Kingsley is out now for sure, right? Because Mind Society, these three Tattooed
Yeah.
Wanderers are gonna remove like 10. Sorry,
Well, and
like 12 skill from Kingsley's side.
you've got the Hero Skirmisher too. I mean, that's just salt on the wound there. So you'll cover the best 4 characters on a board that has 6 characters, and Mind's Desire is swinging in with 6 of his own. There's no single card or even combination of cards in Kingsley's deck that can save him from.
Did he miss a covert? I feel like he missed a covert. He should have coverted Mia Satoshi. Because he knows it's rally to the cause on the stronghold. He knows this could be political, so that Satoshi is actually one of the best characters to covert. But I don't think it'll matter. I think my society just kind of has this game. Has
Yeah,
his game in his pocket.
Kingsley just pass and say GG. So the rematch, this is like like a WWE or a boxing rematch. Kingsley handily took game 1 last season, and here we see the tables turned, and Minds Desire handily takes game 2. I don't believe there were many errors from either player. It's just Minds Desire had those 2 early court games, which were huge tempo. And then,
The
like
two
you were just saying,
censors.
those 2 let goes. And then you also had the 2 let goes used early by Kingsley that weren't available. The
Yeah.
players kind of talking back and forth in chat. They both know each other very well, know this matchup very well. And it did just come down to what cards were drawn.
Yeah, Kingsley says he did have a better early game here. I do agree, but I think by turn 3 it was solidly in Mind's Desire's court, and he just didn't let go from there.
I think the pivotal turn was turn 2.
I think that's fair.
Turn 1 was a toss up. I do believe that momentum was on Kingsley's side as well as board. So I think Kingsley won turn 1. And then from turn 2 on, basically, you had Mind's Desire just getting incremental advantage. Mind's Desire talking about the turn he ran out of fate to save the master. Yeah, that was one of the pivotal plays of the game. And I think that's probably, turn 2, turn 3 are the turns that Kings is going to come back in this game and look at the most and see, what lines could I have taken better, if any. But at the end of the day, he just also didn't draw some answers. Whereas Mind's Desire did draw both of those censures when he had the favor and got to censure some very impactful cards.
Yeah, I think Kingsley took a risk at that point in the game, noticing that he was behind, I think, on tempo to play the Fury. It got censured, and at that point, there's just not much you can do. I think that was actually the right play. When you're playing from behind, you do have to make risks. Otherwise, like if you just play it safe, you're probably not going to get out from being behind. In this case, both players played exceptionally well. I think it just kind of came down to my desire, drew the cards he needed to keep an Eaton Master honored and breaking multiple provinces every turn. Kingsley didn't. That's basically all there is to it.
Yeah, and we see about some of these key moments that we've covered, and Kingsley says when he played the Fury, he was thinking, I hate to miss reprieve, but I need to make him censure if he has it. I definitely am of that same line of state of mind as well. If I know my opponent has a card, I want to get it out of their hand so that, I don't have to play around it anymore. And we have seen in previous cups where people try and play around a card suboptimally by just pretending it doesn't exist or passing priority to their opponent. I think that always leads to a sure loss. All other things equal.
One other
So I
thing we
would
seem to have
rather
missed.
force the card out.
One thing we seem to have missed in that exchange as well was the second censure played on Let Go on the Finger of Jade. Just both players taking actions really fast. I must have completely missed that. But it ended up being very crucial that Mind's Desire had both censures at that point in the game. Otherwise, that Feast or Famine would have swung the board state enough that Kingsley is back in it. And sometimes that's just the way the Dragon Mirror goes. It's very pivotal around the favor and very pivotal around Let Go.
Fighting with Luma with our last question here in chat. When was the last point where Kingsley could have turned it around?
Right there. the point we're just talking about, that conflict with the Neaton Master attacking Feast or Famine. If Mind's Desire didn't have exactly both censures, I think Kingsley is looking all right.
The only other play that I like to discuss real quick before we wrap up was when Mind's Desire attacked Kingsley's Feast or Famine with that Hirama Skirmisher. It was at 2 strength, and we now know that I believe he did have the katana in hand. And Mind's Desire hadn't drawn any let goes at that point. I mean, it's a completely different game if he puts the katana on Mind's Desire Skirmisher, and then you take those 2 fate off of this just monstrous Nitan Master. That ended up deciding the game.
I think Mind's Desire probably had the Finger of Jade at that point, though, and Kingsley decided maybe it wasn't worth the risk of like a let go or a Fury on his own Hirama Skirmisher or the Finger of Jade on the Neaton Master. I think there's just a lot of failing points of that play, and Kingsley just decided not to take the risk there, seeing as he wasn't as behind at the time.
I think
and then
that's
later he played
perfectly
more risky.
defensible. Obviously, as a caster, it's a lot easier to sit here and backseat quarterback. You want to see the big plays. You want to see the moment, and that definitely would have been a huge tempo swing if he had gotten it to go through. But again, it goes back to those let goes, right? With the Cloud of the Mind. If let's say that he'd only used one of those let goes and he just settled for getting both Cloud of the Minds out, he could have had a let go in hand for that Finger of Jade. Now maybe Mind's Desire had both Finger of Jades. We don't know, but just very interesting, very high level game between these 2 players.
Yep, I think ultimately you can blame draw for most of this game's outcome. No, not to belittle Mind Desire's victory. I do think Kingsley did have a couple of moments where he needed to just draw better, and didn't. So it ended up.
You're both just
playing
silent
things very
5 all
much out.
game, and sometimes you get the gas, and sometimes you don't.
Yep. All right. Do we want to maybe get both the players in here, or do we not do that anymore?
Yeah, feel free to if you want. I need to take off, but I'm sure either of them would be pleased to do an interview afterwards.
Sure, I'll try.
Hang off. Have a good night.
Thanks for joining me again, Matt, Rega, whichever you want to be known on as the internet. So it was a pleasure.
Thanks, Travis. Have a good night.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, give me a second. I'll get Kingsley in here too.
Oh, did Rega leave?
Yep, he did have to. He did
Rega
have to
leave?
go just now.
Oh, okay.
Hey guys, awesome game.
Yeah, that was tight.
Yeah,
that was really really tense.
It was a very Dragon Mirror-y game.
Yep.
Yeah, I was telling Woodwin he sent me GG and I just told him I'm like, yeah, I definitely yelled fuck yeah when I won.
Yeah, revenge from last season, right?
No,
last season.
no, I lost
okay.
I lost to Micah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's
I lost very
I
embarrassing.
thought it was a grudge match. Never mind. Ignore that.
I was like, nah. We had the same deck last season, but we didn't actually play each other.
So, I'll start with you, Mind's Desire. How did you feel about the game and how it played out? Was there a point where you realized how much of the game was under your control and you decided to go for the throat?
So I was losing up until the point where until the censure turn. Kingsley and I were talking about it in chat. So turn 1, I'm way behind, right? He's got more fate, a better board, and he's already flipped Resto and canceled it. And so I'm like I'm real in the hole here. However, the one advantage I have going into the later turns is he has to use 2 let goes on turn 1.
That is exactly the point that I called out at the point. Was the double let go very early on.
So I just have to weather the storm, right? Yeah. So Kingsley is way up on tempo. He's way up in the early game. I just need to weather the storm and not lose off of this. So then we both play Masters. We kind of have like a push turn, and then the next turn is when I run into Feast or Famine. So I break Shameful that turn, and then I purposely go into Feast or Famine because I have double Finger of Jade, double Censure. And so I know he's not gonna block, and so I go for the air ring to grab me that extra fate, and then I just put finger on both my guys. He's gonna fury me, so I have to censure that because I knew his hand from a earlier policy debate.
I
And
don't think
then
you did.
I knew your hand. I knew you had double. I knew you had two furies.
The
I knew you
policy
had two
debates
furies.
didn't come out until later, the next turn.
I think I actually drew all 3 Furies and didn't play the second 2.
Yeah,
That's
you
correct.
just didn't really have an opportunity to play them.
Yeah, that's right.
You drew them quite late.
So, well, anyways, so the turn that I broke Feast or Famine, and I countered the Let Go and the Fury, and then I saved my guy with Finger of Jade. I knew I was in a really good spot because my board was going to be bigger, and I knew he didn't have fate to reprieve his guy.
Yeah, I think going on to that then, Kingsley, how did you weigh the risk there of playing the Fury versus saving the fate for reprieve?
I thought I had to play the Fury, so I thought I wanted to just play Let Go, but I knew that he had Center in his deck and that it was enabled, so I felt like I had to play the Fury first, so that if he had one Center, he could either use it there and then I let go on Finger of Jade, or he doesn't use it and he gets bowed out. Either of those are good options, so it was really hurting me to play it. Normally I would just want to go straight for the Let Go, but it's because he had Center in his deck, I had to go for the Fury, I felt, and unfortunately he had both copies in his hand. Unless
Yeah.
you're on 3 copies. Are you on 3 copies?
No, this is a slightly older. This is like the first iteration of this list that I've done on, so it's 2 and 2.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So I figured, he's seen about half the deck, so he probably has one Center, but not the second. And
So-
unfortunately, he did have both.
I had them both since my opening hand. I mulligan and I ended up seeing one in my opening hand, and then on my first 5 I drew the second one, and I'm like, that was basically I was just like, I need these centers to do something because I'm down Let Goes and I'm down Pathfinder's Blades, and those
Yep.
are like two of the really important early game cards.
Yep.
And then when his board went away, and then I had Tattoo Wanderers on my guys, so I was just like, as long as he doesn't draw them, I'm just gonna covert past his guys over and over again.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the one thing that I think, Kingsley, I was gonna talk to you about is, so the turn that you attacked me with the Investigator, I don't know why you didn't investigate.
I didn't investigate. Yeah, I think that was just a mistake.
Yeah, I
was
think you
considering it.
you're just trying to prevent fate, right? Like I think at that point in the game, the fate exchange isn't even that big of a deal.
Yeah, so that's what I had been thinking. I was like, he can take the fate from this ring, but we actually both had a lot at that point, so it wasn't that relevant. I should have done that. I also
you'd
attacked
hit the
fire
Let Go.
instead of void.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I thought you were gonna attack. I thought you were gonna attack fire and dishonor Yokuni.
Yeah, that would have been better. The void ring had little relevance because I had 2 Centuries or 2 reprieves in hand at that point.
Yeah, it's also a big deal. Also because I then got to do fire and I got to honor Yokuni.
Yeah, that's right. There was one other slight misplay, which that I could have played a Censure on the. I did draw my second Censure, and I could have played it on the Let Go that you did against the Tattooed Wanderer that came out on Sumiko, which I should have done, but it wouldn't have made a huge.
I
impact.
honestly I don't think it matters, right? Because I was at 25 after the.
Yeah,
after
so it would have put me. Yeah, it would have meant that I
Would've
could
had
defend like
4?
5 to have other things going my way for that to work.
Yeah, I
Could've
had
had more.
I had one more military buff. I had the fine katana I got off the swordsmith, and then I have
Nice.
the stronghold, and then I can copy my my swordsmith with Yokuni if I want to dig for one more military
Yeah,
buff.
trying to fish for another buff.
Yeah,
The thing with that though is Rally to Cause was under the stronghold, so it would have been a political
He
conflict.
had Pathfinder's Blade.
I Pathfinder's Blade.
Right. All right. That's right. Excellent. Kingsley, how did you feel about the matchup and how it played out? And do you think there were maybe any early choices you maybe would change, or do you think?
No,
you
I
played
think
it
my
as much
early
as
game
good?
was basically good. I was actually super up in the early game. The key issue in the mid game, obviously, if I knew he had 2 Censures, I would hold back there, and I would instead try to save impactful events until I have the favor. I think that in that case, what I would probably want to go for is simply using the reprieve, like we were discussing with that last fate, and not playing the Let Go at all.
Yeah, but hindsight's 2020, am I right?
And then I think I had there were a few minor misplays, so I think I could have changed the overall strength in the last conflict by 7, and it would have enabled me to play some more things. But I don't think it would have been enough just from like minor errors.
It's just.
But
such
the
an
early
overwhelming
game actually
board.
went almost as well as it can for me, so I actually think this game is a good demonstration of how it's very possible to come back in L5R. One thing that did turn out to be kind of a blessing in disguise is normally you don't really want Normally, you don't really want Restoration to be up, and having the opponent attack it repeatedly is very bad. But with the Imperial Palace, it was able to give him the favor in a way that was quite useful.
Yeah. So my first flop was, I flipped Doom Shigenja, or no, I flipped like a bunch of random stuff. It was like Neat and Adapt, Tagashi Mendicant, Mia Satoshi, and then something else. So I kept Satoshi and I mulliganed the rest, and I had Doom Shigenja, Swordsmith Palace, and I think that was like the only reason I stayed in that game was because my opening Dynasty flop like complemented my draw really well.
Yeah, but I thought overall it was a very close game. I think there are a few things that I could have gotten in mid game that would have given me more of a shot, but I had the momentum going in, and my desire did a great job of reversing that.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that would have helped me is honestly just drawing Tattooed Wanderers. That's a very impactful card in that matchup. And I think if I had had, for instance, Tattooed Wanderers rather than the Miyamoto's Furies that I drew late, that would have been super helpful. And I don't know how it would have gone at that point, but the covert in that matchup's key. Oh, I was also a little sad not to see any favorable grounds for similar reasons.
Yeah. On the last turn, I'm drawing 5 cards, and I know I have one more Wanderer and one more Skirmisher, so it was like 2 and 11 to hit one more covert. And I wanted one more covert in case you did see a favorable ground. But then when you saw no favorable ground, I'm like, oh, it doesn't even matter. I'm just gonna triple covert.
Yep. And I think you actually saw both of them too, because I think you had 4 coverts in the conflict.
Yeah, I saw Wanderer and the Skirmisher.
That's right.
So I had 4 coverts in the conflict, and I even had the favorable ground. I was like, oh, well, this is it.
Yep. At that point, it was on board. Actually, I'm pretty sure by the end of the turn prior, it was.
Yeah, when I had the Honor Yokuni with the Wanderer.
Yeah, I think it wasn't totally over the turn prior. I also think that if I had done the fire instead of void, that actually would have been very useful.
Yeah, Widwin pointed out to me that I made one pretty relative mistake. The turn prior, when I broke Restoration of Balance, I should have left Yokuni home. And just taken the favor. Yeah. That was just a mistake.
Yep, I definitely noted that.
I for some reason I was afraid of court games, and then I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, wait, I'm just gonna flip this province so I can't get furied, and then if I'm gonna get court games, I'm gonna dishonor the master anyway, so I should just attack with the master.
Yeah, and like neither of them getting dishonored is really good, so it's not as if it's like sending in someone with low glory.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that was I thought it was a very, very interesting game, and
it's a very.
I think this deck. We have very similar decks. I think Dragon continues to be one of the strongest decks in the game. And
absolutely.
One thing that I actually find really good and healthy for the game is that the Dragon versus Dragon mirror is quite interesting. I think when there are strong decks that don't have just terrible mirrors, that's quite good. The Dragon Phoenix mirror used to be really bad.
Yeah, it kind of, I imagine it was very draw dependent on seeing Yokuni and being able to just put him in multiple conflicts, right?
The key card in Dragon Phoenix is Against the Waves, and it's like massively impactful, but you can play it on your opponent's guys.
Yeah.
So like Yokuni is one of the best characters to get in Dragon versus Dragon, and Against the Waves can now already either yours or your opponent's. And for that reason, it was super draw dependent. There were frequently weird situations with Display of Power, especially because Policy Debate wasn't out at that time, where you had to go for bad rings on purpose or risk getting blown up. It was just very, very weird.
Investigator was probably insane in that version of the mirror, where because it just gave you information.
Yeah, you had to actually, at sometimes, the only safe way to attack with a good ring was to do a political attack with your own Investigator. But even that wasn't actually safe because people played Rally to the cause in provinces at that time, and there was no Pathfinder.
Oh god, that would be brutal.
But that's the other one. Pathfinder's Blade didn't exist. So that was actually super impactful because it meant that provinces were way more just luck than they are now. It was...
Well, there's still luck for some of us other clans.
Travis is probably thinking, he's like, I don't know about you guys, but I still have to face check this stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
especially against Dragon, it feels like a lottery.
Matchup where the provinces can be so huge, especially with Restoration of Balance and Shameful, having the ability to look at provinces is very helpful.
Getting a Feast or Famine to
Or
fire off
block
is
provinces.
also
I'm sorry, I was thinking of Uchi Wayfinder.
Feast or Famine can swing the game like tremendously. Also,
Feast or Famine is broken. It shouldn't be in the game. It's completely ridiculous.
Yeah, perhaps so. Perhaps so. I don't necessarily disagree with that assessment. The
I
nice
don't
thing.
know. The problem is, I don't think they can legitimately. If they're going to errata or change it, they have to do it like at very specific times, or else it's unfair to one group or another. So, like, if you
Yeah.
chose your role in large part because of Feast or Famine, which is one of the main reasons to go for a fire role, and then they changed it after the fact, or they banned it, or whatever, you'd be pretty mad.
I feel.
And
Okay.
I think if they're gonna do anything to the role specific provinces, they have to do it like before the role ceremony.
I think
Yes.
you should do it like after Worlds, prior to roles being chosen.
Yeah, like the best time to do it would be right after the finals. They make a special announcement, but I honestly suspect they won't do anything to it. Fantasy Flight tends to be pretty hands off with these things. But if they decided to not be hands off and they're listening to this cast for some reason, please, please, please ban Feast or Famine, ban Kuremori. Both of them are just toxic. And
no.
Kuremori, not everyone's running it right now, but it's going to be so
No,
hated.
don't worry. Travis is gonna try and get Seeker Avoid again
As,
for
as
at
soon
Worlds.
as soon as that Phoenix, the new Phoenix Stronghold comes out, everyone's going to be on Kuremori again. People are going to be so angry.
Quit giving away the tech, Kingsley, dude.
Well,
it's true. It's completely true.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that card is toxic.
To be fair, Dragon is one of the clans that Kuremori isn't as
Oh
broken
yeah,
against.
we don't care very much about it, but like it's so horrible if you're playing Lion or Crab. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah,
Scorpion.
in Crab Chat, people complain all the time that they can never break Kuremori.
Yeah, I mean honestly, when I play Phoenix on Kuremori, I often just assume that the opponent cannot break my stronghold at all, and the only win condition I care about is dishonor. In terms of things that my opponent can do to me. Like I know that sounds arrogant. Lion, yeah, it's a challenge. If someone gets a totally dominant board, they can do it, but it's like you have to really have things line up. Like
They have to line up.
you gotta for greater glory with your guys that have pride the turn before, and then you have a bunch of honored guys, and then you can contest political. But even so, it's a really uphill battle, and it makes some matchups so ridiculous that I think just repeated change conflict type I think should not be in the game at all.
I do somewhat agree with that for sure. Kuremori is a bit overtuned.
Yeah, they're
It's
definitely
in
cards
Feast or
that
Famine
are over
territory.
the top.
I think Kuremori would be completely fine and balanced if the change element effect was an action, but the change type was a reaction to reveal on the same card. Because then you get the big swing once, and then after that you get to do the cool plays where you're switching rings to enable you're enabling your Isawa Itsuko, or you're enabling whatever other Phoenix like ring technology you're doing. I think that would be a fine card, but the way it is now, the cool technical plays with the change what type of ring it is are usually overshadowed by the brute force. Oh, I'm just going to choose the conflict type, and half my opponent's guys don't do anything.
Look, other than Kuremori, I'm not looking forward to the day when Shrine Maiden is a 1-mana 1/1 that draws you 3
Oh
cards.
yeah, Shrine Maiden's also broken. I have no idea what they were thinking. Like it's
like especially with all these new spells, like it's just gonna be oh cool, they played a 1-mana 1/1 and drew 3 cards.
It's not even like a balanced card now. It's already really good because 1-cost 1/1s in conflict are already good. So right now it's a thing that's good, and then sometimes you get a card for free. Like
having no glory is also a big deal.
Yeah, people are playing what's it called? People are playing that Crane 1/1 Shinobi.
Oh, yeah, Shoot was playing it. And something Harrier.
Yeah, Young Harrier or Harrier or whatever.
It's Young Harrier.
People are playing that card just because it's a 1/1 in conflict for 1.
Yeah,
just because that's a good deal.
That's like amazing.
And like the ability is very infrequently used.
Yeah, it's just used because so basically after you get Furied, you can poke. 1/1 is really important because it can poke either side of the conflict and grab the ring.
Yeah. In fact, I think I've actually legitimately never seen someone use the ability, but 1/1 for 1 is great. So Shrine Maiden is 1/1 for 1, and also it gives you up to 3 cards, and that's totally ridiculous. It's like It's crazy. And
I would say
that's
I would play one
also
man. I would play 1 mana 1/1 always if it always drew me. If it said draw 1 card, discard or mill 2. Like if it was draw 1, mill 2, absolutely would just
Yeah.
throw it in every deck.
Like even with Satoshi, milling yourself out is something that like you kind of do to yourself. Like
I
there's like
was
no
kind of
situation
worried.
where you're gonna.
I was
really
kind of
worry
worried
about
Kingsley
that.
was gonna mill that game. So if if the board stalled out and I wasn't gonna be able to win, I was just considering bidding 1 to see if I could stall it out and have him mill because he's on like 6 cards in Dynasty.
One last thing to bring it back to the game. Fighting Woman asks in chat, he would like to know, Kingsley, if you are thinking about adding Finger of Jade to your deck, or are you sticking to just 2 Censure?
no. I'm sticking to 2 Censure. I could actually conceivably see 3 Censure under some circumstances. It depends on situational factors.
Yeah, I'm up to 3 as well in Phoenix, so I can definitely say it's pretty good.
I think Finger. Mazazar, are you on Finger of Jade right now in the most recent version?
So the most recent version of the deck, I am on 3 Censure, 1 Finger of Jade.
Yeah,
Makes
so
sense.
I do think Finger is good sometimes, but I don't like that it costs 1, and a lot of the things that it blocks are free.
So the reason that I'm on 1 is because I do like the fact that I can go grab it with what was that? Swordsmith.
Yeah, that's
Like,
fair.
so like so that's why I have 1 is, and so to make the changes, so it's the current list, and to add the extra card, so I added the 3rd bonsai back in, and in that place I cut the jade. I actually cut the jade masterpiece.
Oh, I like Jade Masterpiece. Jade
I
Masterpiece
like it.
is strong for both of us this game too.
No, I agree. So I had to find a cut, right? And so
Yeah.
I cut an attachment that costs 1 fate, just to test it out. I can just figure out another spot right now.
Yeah,
But
that's
that is
fair.
currently what I am testing. So if you see me playing on Jigoku, that is the list that I'm playing. I've been playing Scorpion actually on Jigoku. I've been playing Woodwind's list.
Scorpion's kind of fun.
Scorpion's a lot of fun.
I thoroughly enjoy playing Scorpion. It's been quite fun.
I played basically Esper Colors and Magic all the fucking time, so Scorpion is very much up my alley.
Yeah,
I also like, some people might get mad at me for saying this. I like Scorpion because there's a sense in which it's easy, and I don't mean that it's easy in the sense that it's simple, but I mean it's easy in that, like, if you play against someone who doesn't respect what they do, you just win.
Yeah.
Like, you just blow them up. And Dragon is not like that, but Dragon has a lot of brute force of its own, so yeah.
I consider Dragon probably the most straightforward faction. There's a little bit of nuance, but not a lot.
I think Dragon has a really low floor. Like I can tell anyone what to do, and they can
Right.
play Dragon, right? And like their provinces will win them like a lot of games. But like once you get to the higher level, I think there's a lot of play to it. There's a
I
lot
think
of
that's true of
mono
every
usage.
deck.
Sure. But like with just the floor to enter, Dragon is really low.
I think
Yeah, that's
the
what I
easiest
meant.
deck to play is probably Lion, but Dragon is like close behind it.
Yeah, that's probably true.
'Cause,
Yeah,
like,
I mean, they're pretty
Lion,
similar, straightforward game plans, right?
Yeah, Dragon has a little bit of complexity in terms of like what are the best conflicts to use my guys in, whereas Lion has very one-sided characters, so it doesn't have that, and they're both kind of very aggressive, gonna break your stuff decks. Yeah, I don't know. I think, but I think clan balance overall right now is pretty okay. Unicorn's in a bad place. Crane is actually not doing so hot either. And aside from that, though, I think the game is in a pretty good position right now.
I would say
For
with the
how
outlier
young
of
the
Scorpion,
game is- for how young the game is, I think it's in a fine spot.
I think
Sorry,
it's.
what did you say about Scorpion?
I think right now the main concern is Unicorn and Scorpion both being on the far ends of the spectrum, with the other 5 clans being relatively even.
Oh,
Even
Crane. I
Crane.
think I want to be very clear. I don't think Scorpion is overpowering. I think that like Scorpion is on the top tier perhaps, but I think it has disadvantaged matchups against both of the other top tier clans, which is to say Dragon and Crab.
I think
I don't know about that.
Yeah,
I
to be
think-
the scene.
I
think it's actually
personally
pretty
I
favored.
personally think Scorpion is the best deck, but not by a wide enough margin for them to like auto win stuff. I think they are the best deck because I think every single one of their matchups is 50-50 or better.
Oh, I
personally
don't.
Well,
I
yeah,
think-
so that's just the difference in opinion there, right? Where I think
Yeah.
skill matchups are by default 50-50s, and I think both versus Crab and Dragon, they're both skill matchups.
agree.
I could see that. I think if it's true that Scorpion is not advantaged or is not disadvantaged against Dragon and Crab, then Scorpion is the best deck.
I
But
just think they're
that, like,
50-50, all right? So it's not advantage or disadvantage, but they're advantage versus the other 5.
sure, yeah,
Their
I totally
percentage
buy that.
advantage against the other 4 clans is so much higher than the advantage than Dragon and Crab have versus. So that's why I give them the nod.
Yeah, so I agree with you on everything except that I think that Dragon and Crab are actually up against Scorpion at a high level of play.
That's fair. I mean, we just need to see. I just need to see more data. Like, who is it? Shoot was saying. Kalimsha was saying that like 400 plus people have already signed up for Paris.
Yes.
So I want like a 500 person plus tournament. Like, get me to Grand Prix levels, and that is some useful data. Like,
I want a tournament with 2 out of 3s and chess clocks, and then we can.
so everyone's talking about chess clocks in paper. So the reason that
No, I'm not talking about chess clocks and paper. I'm talking about chess clocks and paper are janky.
Yeah, chess clocks for paper tournaments are really bad because of communication issues. Basically, is really the main issue where people don't realize priority has been passed, or like any game with priority, a chess clock is not feasible. Basically,
Yeah.
but like you could do it like Magic Online.
I will also say that I think there's a large number of timing windows that aren't relevant and could be eliminated or streamlined.
Yeah, it's tough, right? On Magic Online, you can set stops in terms of what phases you want. And so on Magic Online, if you say you have nothing to play and you just don't care, you can basically you can auto yield priority on all of your stops for the turn. So like in the early turns when you're playing land go, you can just play land auto yield, and then you just skip through all the steps. So like there's a lot of streamlining there to save time basically.
I actually meant in paper. Like, I bet if they took a week and they looked at the timing chart and they tested different things, they could make a version that was totally fine with chess clocks.
Yeah, I think there's uses for just about every action window in the game, but like 80% of them are like really fringe niche uses, like Cloud the Mind in the draw phase, or
the way I do it, or the way I did it in paper was, I just when the match started, I just said if you have actions in the like the odd phases like fate, draw, regroup, all that stuff, just announce it and we'll go back. But basically, I'm just gonna assume priority is passed unless you say something, and that just sped the game up. Like we immediately if I want to source something like in draw step swordsmith or like in draw step call the mind, but you just announce where you're doing it. That's all.
Yep.
It's like stopping someone in their upkeep in Magic. It's just like after before they draw, it's like I have effects in your upkeep. You like the priority gets passed all of the time in that step, but you just stop your opponent from drawing and saying I have effects.
I've just gotten really good at saying like draw pass as like my thing right after drawing.
Oh,
and
sure,
then,
sure.
Like most other players will just like reciprocate that, and it just goes like very quick.
Because
I think
I gotta take off. I will see you guys later. Great game, Mind's Desire, and good luck in the rest of the league.
Thank you.
See you later, Kingsley. Thanks for stopping by.
I was just gonna say that I think in paper, once more players get acclimated to playing paper tournaments and like getting used to like how the flow of the game is supposed to go, you'll see an increase in player speed.
Yeah. And I think it's already started to happen. Most people in most recent tournaments have said like it rarely goes to time, and we're not really seeing top tables like we were at Worlds.
Yeah, but the game was what, like 2 months old when Worlds happened?
Yeah, the game was also much slower at Worlds, so it was a lot more easy to stall out a game and not lose too many provinces. The game's much more fast now, really aggressive. There's lots of blowout plays and things you have to dance around to not lose the game very quickly against a skilled opponent.
I do like that for a game that doesn't have for a game that where losing in time is such a it's just no incentive to lose in time for either player. Like even if you win in time, it's not even that useful.
Yeah,
like six points is nothing.
I think at Worlds, like most games went like maybe 3 or 4 rounds before time was called, and now like most players are comfortably getting 5 rounds before time, which is excellent.
Yeah,
that's where
awesome.
most games will culminate, and you can see who's going to win. Anyway, thank you for joining me, Mind's Desire. Congratulations on your victory. It was an awesome game to watch and commentate.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and watch it back while I wind myself down. All right, take care.
And thanks to chat for watching. We'll be doing more of these in the future, so stay tuned. And keep an eye on the Discord channels for the league, as we're going to be getting a lot of these games in this weekend. Goodbye.